Um, Round 2 for San Antonio Club Championship. I have 4 games that we'll be reviewing for the top 4. I tried to get one more game from Angel, but unfortunately, I don't know. The PGM was just not working. So we're going to do 4 game reviews from San Antonio Club Championship, which was every Thursday this month in San Antonio. And then I even have one more game from the Wednesday, which I wasn't able to review, which is Yak versus Jason Loving. I just wanted to go over real quick. So, yeah, let's go and get started on this one. This first one we're going to be doing um, is going to be Mitch Vergara versus Brandon Moore. One second, real quick. Could you please share it for me? I don't know. I can't do it right now. You don't talk about it. Yeah, thank you. All right, sorry about that, guys. All right, so the first game we're going to be reviewing is going to be Mitch versus Brandon. So Brandon is one of our new players, obviously a very strong player, and he was actually able to take out Mitch the Master. So let's take a look at this game. Mitch is playing the white side. So we have D4, Knight F6, Knight F3, G6, C4, Bishop G7, Knight C3, and D5 here. So it's an interesting Grunfeld, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much theory. Luckily, I was able to hang out with Brandon afterwards, and he was telling me a little bit about this opening more. I mean, the Grunfeld is definitely one of the best openings here for Black. It's just a lot of theory, and I haven't put the work into it. But I will say, after seeing this game and hear Brandon talk to me about it, I think I'm a little bit more inspired to actually do some footwork into this opening. So let's continue. G3 here, definitely not one of the challenging lines of it. I think like the Moscow variation is like Queen to B3 or the Russian variation, from what I've seen. But this, I think most players are actually going to shy away from the Grunfeld because it's just so complicated. And it looks like Mitch did not want to play the most challenging line, which again I wouldn't either. So G3, D takes C4, Queen A4 check, Knight C6. Bishop G2. Let's see. I'm going to turn this on. I want to see how much theory is on right here. So the last move of theory as far as using the lead chess one. Yeah, White's just doing very good in these lines. So Queen B3 is a move here that gets played pretty well. C takes D5. There's a lot of moves here that White can play with, like giving 30% win rate. But after this G3, G3 actually does scores pretty well here, unless Black plays the D takes C4, which again it looks like Brandon was pretty ready for this. D takes C4. Now the win rate for this is just like 50% of Black winning with Bishop G2, and Queen A4 check was 67% with Black winning. So yeah, I think the line that got played here is just definitely in Black's favor, but yeah, I have no idea what I'd be doing in these lines. So Queen A4 check, Knight C6, Bishop G2. With that being said, the computer is giving this as a slight advantage for White. Castles, Queen takes C4, Knight to D7. And this is a very interesting move right here. After the game, Brandon had mentioned to me that the computer was giving, or maybe mentioned that one of the lines was actually to play Bishop to E6 here, which is a very nice move controlling this D5 square. And putting pressure on D4 here, Queen to D3, and then this really cool idea at Knight to E8, and it's giving Black a decent little advantage. With one of the ideas being like Knight to D6, trying to grab this C4 square. So, because right now the D4 pawn's being attacked, right? We have 1, 2, 3 attackers here. So this is a very strong idea. So, yeah, I'm not too sure how I would react to this. Computers giving, well, I think most people here would play pawn to E3. And yeah, it's giving Knight to D6 ideas and Knight to B4 here with Black having the advantage. Computer gives Bishop E3 to try and maintain equality. And this is a very, I'm not sure if I could play this move myself. This is already just getting so hairy in the theory. But anyways, the game actually continued with Knight to D7. And here, this looks like it was not the most precise way to play, and it gives White the advantage now. Pawn to e3 was played. Computer's recommending d5, which I must say looks pretty right to me, right? Trying to kick this knight away and trying to grab the center as soon as possible. But I mean, isn't that the Grunfeld? You know, white gets this big center, and then black just tries to dismantle it with hypermodernism ideas. So pawn to e3, knight to b6, queen back to e2, bishop to e6. Man, these moves are just so crazy to me. I'm always trying to use my pawn structure to, you know, control the center. And here, Brandon's definitely using his pieces to try and control it. And again, a very strong idea here, already stopping white from castling. I really like the way that he follows up on this too. So yeah, if you castle, obviously bishop c4 gets played. So a very natural move which Mitch plays is pawn to b3. And very interesting, I like this move here, again by Brandon, pawn to a5. So it's just setting pawn a4, creating some weaknesses over here, and trying to get this rook active. Castles happens now. Pawn to a4, of course. Knight to g5, trying to get rid of this bishop. Bishop to f5. Bishop to e3, a very interesting move right here. Pawn takes, and queen to d7. Here, the computer is definitely giving a very good position here for white. I would definitely say a knight on c5 here is what I'm kind of eyeing here already. Yeah, I feel like black needs to play e5 at some point, because if he doesn't mess up the center, I feel like white's just going to get a very good position here. So, knight to e4, bishop to g4, queen to b2. I just don't like the idea of putting the bishop on this diagonal. I think, again, e5 is like a move I'd like to play here, although you have to contest with d5 ideas. And plus, the knight coming to c5 is going to be very annoying, attacking the queen and this b7 pawn, which I believe is where white's going to get most of their counterplay from. Rook to d8, rook to c1. I wonder if there's a reason why knight c5 is... Okay, well anyways. Rook c1 got played. Queen to c8. Knight to c5. Awesome, we got this nice ideas, but tactics already coming down this file. So you can see the knight is already starting to put pressure on there, and knight takes b7 ideas. Obviously, we're going to move this knight away first, so maybe like knight e4, or maybe even knight b5, which I like is just, you know... Obviously, white has a lot of pressure here on the queen side, and it's up to black to try and create some counterplay here, or else he's just going to get smashed. A pawn to e5, again, very theoretical move here, and I like this, and this is kind of pointing out why I don't like the queen on this diagonal. Queen c2, probably I like a little bit more, but you have to contest with these bishop f5 ideas, so queen b2 is definitely a move that makes sense to me. I just don't like it as much, but I definitely understand why it was played. Pawn d5, of course, d5 is going to get played. And wow, okay, this is very cool. So knight e7 got played, but Brandon did tell me after the game he had analyzed knight to d4, and that's actually the top choice move by the computer. And this is just a sick move that if someone plays this against me, I mean, I don't know if we can be friends after that. This is a crazy line. White is actually winning in this line. They have to play this very precise, obviously, but they should be able to just to take the knight. So e takes d4, e takes d4, knight 3 to e4, and knight takes d5. I mean, I'm not going to say this looks terrible for black at all. Black definitely has some counterplay. For being down a piece, the computer's only giving this a 1-point advantage. So, I mean, to me, it's just astonishing. This knight d4 can even get played. And I mean, even to think about this is just pretty amazing to me, too. So knight e7 gets played, but now it's just giving white a 3-point advantage. Pawn to e4. Pawn to c6. Wow, that's a move. Again, I wouldn't be trying to push this pawn, but I understand why he's wanting to do it. He's trying to break up the center. I'm just scared about this, you know, rook opposite of the queen. Luckily, enough for Mitch here. You know, the bishop's on the diagonal, so it's been blocked here. So Mitch is pretty happy about that. So c6, d6. Whoa. Yeah, this is a very complicated game by both these strong players here. Rook takes, knight takes b7. Discovery attack with this bishop. Rook to d7. I am curious about Oh, because okay, I just wanted to make sure. So if rook takes a3, the idea being that like if you like just take back, then you could take back and you're up a piece. But there's two variations that are winning here for white. One of them is just knight takes d6 here with a nice tempo on the queen, and the other one is just queen takes a3, still putting pressure on the rook. So that tactic doesn't work there. So after knight takes b7, just a simple rook to d7 here. But I mean, yeah, the c6 weakness doesn't look nice, but b3 is not so great here either, right? Knight back to c5, rook to a7. All things considered, I don't think black is doing as bad as he could be doing. I do like white because of the pressure on c6, but these doubled rooks are a bit annoying. Knight to a4, knight takes, knight takes. Obviously, the knight b6 is the threat now. Queen to e8. Interesting move. I'm having a very hard time understanding all these moves here. Usually, I'm pretty good at foretelling why moves are being made, but I don't really understand this queen e8 idea, other than moving out the way. I don't know if Brandon is here, but I would love to know the time control, because I know Mitch was a bit late to this game, and so they're going to get into a time scramble here. So you know the quality of moves will definitely go down, and Brendan came out on top after that time scramble, which I don't know what move it started off around. Pawn to h3, bishop e6, bishop to d6, e5 pawn attack over here, f6. Oof, not a move you want to play, but pretty much forced so you don't lose a pawn. King h2, a nice safe move here. White's advantage is just dwindling here. So I am curious, Brandon. Do you remember which move you guys were starting to get low on time around? I just want to paint a better picture for those who are checking this out. Knight to c8, bishop to c5, which I do like this move. Just putting a little pressure over here on the queen side, and probably b4 in the future. Rook to b7, b4, very natural move here. Backwards pawn over here. I do wish this bishop was a bit more active, but eh. Rook to b8. Looks like Brandon's got his new target over here. And I'm not sure where this knight's going. b4 is definitely a little bit weakness here. Queen c2, h5. A nice positional move here, which I definitely looked at right away, was this bishop to f8. Trying to put pressure on the b4 pawn. Obviously trading here, queen takes. I would. Oh no. Oh, you know what? c6 does get weak here, but queen takes. Why not? I like this. Ooh. Okay. Knight c5. That's if they don't take. If they take on c6 here, then black should be relatively happy. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Pieces hanging. Pieces hanging. Pieces hanging. What do you play here then? Why is this okay for black? Bishop d7. Oh my gosh, never mind. This is just a complicated position, man. Okay, so the game continued with h5, pawn to h4. So around this time, they both have about 10 minutes left. Bishop to h6, rook to d1, queen f7. These are only game 60, so you run out of time very, very fast. And in this kind of complicated position, it's definitely not something you're wanting. Nice little threat here, bishop to b3, winning the exchange. Rook d3, I like this move. Rook d3, maybe getting ready to double up rooks on this open d file here. King h7, rook to d1. Yeah, I mean, Mitch definitely has a decent little advantage here. Pawn to g5. Looks like he's trying to open up on the king side over here. I'm not sure if I'd play like this, but I can definitely understand trying to make some threats in this position. Pawn takes, bishop takes. Interesting. So it looks like he's going to play for h4 idea. Open up the h file, maybe slide some rooks over here in the future, even the queen. Looks like Brandon has one idea on his mind, and that's, win this guy over here. So, rook to d8, knight to e7, rook to d6, and it looks like that's where he loses his advantage. After rook to d8, rook to d6, it's just giving the simple bishop to b3 here, which is going to be winning the exchange, or is this just winning a whole piece here? Skewing, right? What does Brandon play? King to g7. So they're both low on time here, so he misses the bishop to b3 idea. I'm not sure if he was worried about a threat here, but I don't see what this rook d6 does other than look nice here. Okay, well anyways, King G7 gets played. Rook back to D8. Again, bishop B3 is still here, although it's not giving as big as an advantage. Knight to G6. Rook takes, rook takes. Rook to D3. Obviously stopping this B3 idea. Mitch must have seen it at this point. Rook H8. And it's giving it equality here. Looks like H4 is a threat that Brandon's playing. This is a really weird looking position to me, man. Yeah, at this point, there's 2 minutes left. And yeah, this is not a position where I want less time on the clock, man. Yeah, no, it happens. Yeah, it happens. One of my favorite things is whenever I win my chess games and then no one congratulates me. They just walk up and tell me I missed a mate. So that's always fun to have. Bishop to E3. It looks like Mitch is trying to make some trades here. And H4 is the move here given by the computer, which makes sense. And Brandon doesn't fail to see this move. Bishop takes. Is he taking check? Double check here, so the king has to take now. Yeah, I'm not liking this now. King takes. Ooh. F takes G5, and now it is a decisive advantage here for Brandon. And it looks like he's going to take home the point here. I mean, look at this F4 square here. If your queen or your knight doesn't go here, I don't know who does. The light squares are seeming weak, especially if you could like trade off. Yeah, this is getting to a nice position here. Queen F4 check looks particularly troublesome. Oof. Queen to D2 got played, killing this idea right away. And a nice move here, and I assumed Brandon did calculate all this out. This Queen F4 check, which is the top move by the computer, is just forcing the win of material. I believe at this point I did walk by and I saw the next moves get played very, very fast. So Queen F4 check gets played. Queen takes. E takes F4. And I was like, when I was walking by, I was like, is this checkmate? And obviously King F3. But now you see Knight E5 check gets played. King E2. And the most precise move here, you have to watch out for Brandon. He's a killer. Most people here would probably just be lazy and just take the rook. But Brandon plays bishop c4, and it's game over here. You're just going to be losing material. Even if he does try to play like knight to b2 here, you can have like ideas. Yeah, computer's saying it. You just play bishop b5 here, and like a killer, you're going to play like rook to d8 next. And obviously, this should be an easy enough endgame to win. I assume, Mitch was down on time here, and just, yeah, I wouldn't really have the heart here to play this position out myself. So a very nice game by one of our new players here in San Antonio, Brandon Moore. I believe he's up in San Marcos, but he made the drive down for San Antonio Club Championship 2021. All right, so that was his game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. It's actually my game. So I played against Benjamin Romo. Benjamin is back from the COVID. Not that he had it, just that, during COVID, most players were gone. So this is one of his first tournaments coming back here. And I was playing with the black pieces. I'm a little, yeah, I definitely do not like the opening I choose. I don't know why I play it. It must be some kind of masochist or something. Because after d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, I chose to play c5 here. Going into a Bayoni pawn structure, which, again, this after seeing the positions you can get with the Grunfeld, I definitely want to look into this Grunfeld more because, literally the translation of the Bayoni is son of sorrow, which I will tell you, white, if they're strong enough with good enough prep, they can just make you suffer in these positions. And I definitely suffered in this game against Benjamin for quite a while. So d5, e takes, c takes. This is all main line here. d6, knight c3, g6, e4, bishop g7, bishop d3. This is pretty interesting. I've always liked the bishop e2 lines here as white. Castles, pawn h3, very important move here, stopping bishop g4, which as a Bayoni player, if you could trade off this bad bishop, it's always a plus. Pawn to a6, a4 is pretty standard here, just stopping the b5 expansion. Rook to e8, castles, knight to d7, bishop to f4, attacking this d6 pawn, which is one of the main weaknesses in this opening. Queen c7, knight to d2, looking about the plan of knight to c4, and now knight to e5. At this point, at least for me, I'm still kind of in my opening knowledge, and we're on move about 13 here. Not to say that this is a great position for black, but I'm still within my realm of like knowing these moves pretty well. I don't know about this knight d2 move. It looks like it might be a little imprecise, although white still has the advantage here because they just have more space. But the bishop now has to move back to e2. I mean, you're more than welcome to give me the bishop pair, knight c4 idea and f4 idea. But I mean, I'm happy that you know, I'm getting to these kind of positions already. So bishop just goes back to e2. No need to give away this beautiful dark square bishop. Rook to b8. One of the plans, obviously, here is to play b5, and rook to a3, which I found very, very interesting. Maybe this is a move that gets played at a higher level, but I haven't really seen this idea. I assume the idea is to play like rook b3 to put pressure on b5, but I will say the rook does look a bit awkward here. I mean, this could be what was the IM's name? I forget what his name was. But he was known for these rook lifts. So, I mean, maybe he's looking at kingside attacks. To me, it looked awkward, but I'm not too sure. It's probably, I don't know, maybe it's just theory. Bishop d7. Looking to play b5, b4 here. Of course, my expansion on the queen side is important. Pawn to a5. And here I did end up playing bishop back to c8 here. Just because I want to play b5, but I want my a6 pawn to be defended just a little bit more. But computer is saying here I can just play b6 or b5 here and play for it. I mean, again, this is why I don't like these kind of positions, because white can just kind of sit around and just enjoy their spatial advantage. Hey, what's going on, Evan? So yeah, I don't know. It's just a tough position for me. I feel I never like playing these positions as black, but it's one of the few I know very well. So I definitely need to do some work and get some better positions to play. So bishop c8, rook to e1, knight f to d7. Here, just doubling up my knights. Hopefully, I mean, one of the ideas that you can play in this position is also looking to play pawn c4, knight to c5, and you can see that there'll be some really good knights here with pressure on d3. The light squares are just being attacked very nicely here. So c4, knight c5, again putting pressure on e4, and also maybe getting a knight to d3 in the future. Queen c1, again, very interesting move here from Benjamin. It's I'm not too sure what his plan was here. I mean, maybe some b4 plans, and then also maybe trading off the bishop over here. I'm not too sure what this move was about. Well, you know, I was sick of just waiting around, so b5, here we go. We're going to push it. Of course, a takes b6. Now I have this backwards pawn open file, but, you know, white also has their weaknesses over here, and that's what it's all about, at least to me. I'm going to create a position where it's imbalanced, and then we're going to see what happens, you know. Let the dominoes fall. Rook takes b6. Pawn to h4. I think the plan here was to play like h5 and kind of make my king side a little bit weak. The problem is that now the g4 square is actually pretty weak here for white. So, yeah, I played h5 here. So now I have just a safe square for my knight. And the king side attack is kind of being slowed if he was planning on doing a king side attack. Bishop to g3. So you have to be a little careful here if you're not paying attention and just play like bishop b7. I believe f4. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. So there was chances of this knight getting trapped, but since I got h5, and I don't have to worry about f4 threats as much now. Sorry. So anyways, I played rook b4 here, gambiting this pawn away. To be honest, it's not really a gambit if you you know, calculate deeply into it. But this was a fast game, so Benjamin missed the idea, and he played pawn f4, knight g4, of course, and you know, he could take here and give the double pawns, but I'm not too worried about that double pawn. It gives me some space, and you know, my knight and my bishop can defend this pawn pretty easily. Unfortunately for Benjamin, he saw the free pawn and he took it. Now he takes, bishop takes, rook takes. And now I get the pawn back plus some good compensation. I mean, this was a bad pawn anyway, so I was very happy to lose it. And hopefully now you can see like some combinations being played here. At this point, I was able to start creating some very good counterplay. Of course, we're going to start off with this bishop d4 check. king h1. And here I almost did play the knight to f2 check because it looks, you know, it's a very natural looking move here. It's like knight f2 check. You know, you're pretty much forced to take. Bishop takes on f2. I don't know, rook f1. Bishop takes, and then knight f3 is what I had calculated here. And I was just like, I had gone to bishop f6, and I was like, okay, this is definitely a decent position for me. But, yeah, I just wanted to calculate to see if there's anything more, you know, because, you know, when you see a good move, look for a better one. And luckily enough for me, I'd seen this tactical concept before. Bishop f2 here, which is a very nice idea. Obviously threatening the bishop and the rook here, and there's really no good way to defend the rook and the bishop at the same time, other than taking, which is what happens. But after knight takes f2 check, king g1, knight d3, we've got a little forkaroonie right here. So queen b1 got played, and oh, this is so interesting. Okay, so at this point, I did not take the rook, and you know, taking the rook looks good to me. But the problem with the line I had calculated was like, you know, knight takes, queen takes. If you take on b2, then knight c4 gets played, and yeah, this is already giving almost equality for white here. Black is only at negative 0.7, and you have to play a very fine line here because d6 is weak, and then if you lose this d6 pawn, like I don't know, computers gives queen b7 here, which is a nice move. I'm not sure if I'd find that beautiful move. I'd probably play something like rook b4. And after like knight to d6 here, you see that these passed pawns are going to be very annoying, and you know these knights are monsters over the board. So, you know, I was looking at this and trying to calculate it, and I was just like, you know, it just didn't feel right to do that. So I kept calculating, and then, you know, there's so many weaknesses in this position. There's no need to get greedy right away with this. I ended up playing computer's best move, which is pawn to c4 here. And I was really happy to find this move because either you're going to be winning a few pawns in these variations from what I had calculated, or you're going to win the exchange back anyways. One of the nice ideas about c4 is, you know, b2 is now a threat. Queen c5 check, or even queen a7 or queen b6 check are in the air. So the king is actually very, very vulnerable here. And there's really no good square for your rook to move to. I don't believe I played the best line coming up, so I am interested to see what the computer says and how much it chastises me. So, rook to e3. And yeah, here I did not choose the most precise line. Well, actually, computer's going back and forth here. It's going back and forth between two moves here, which is rook takes b2 and queen to c5, pinning the rook. Yeah, this is a very rich position, but this is like -6 here for black, so I mean, there's just too many weaknesses here. So I played, it looks like they're very similar. It's like -6.3 and -6.2. So I actually played rook takes b2 here, which is, yeah, it's an okay move. I mean, looking back at it now, I don't know. Maybe I would play queen c5. One of the ideas of this queen c5 move is that, you know, you're attacking the rook right here, and the only good way to defend the rook was going to be like knight to f1, in which case, you know, you're just trumping along this position with rook takes b2 or knight takes f4. You know, you have this very nice pin. I was hoping for the blunder of knight to d1 where you could just say, hey, here we go, rook takes b2 here. And of course, taking on b2 will drop this rook and the knight over here. This is what I had calculated, but for some reason, I just ended up playing rook takes b2, queen to d1, queen c5 now putting pressure again on the rook. Knight takes c4. This was a nice touch here by Benjamin. I calculated this move, which is, you know, knight takes c4 was really cool by Benjamin because not only does it win a pawn back, it also defends the rook, and if you just take back here with queen c4, then you get to take back the knight. And computer's just giving this as a win. I guess this is probably just going to be a winning endgame here. Yeah, black, it just trades everything off, and everything's falling here. Let me see, knight c5. Oh, there's just a fork here. So it was even easier than that. I missed this. So I ended up playing a different line, which I was happy with. I played queen c5, knight takes c4, knight takes f4 here. Problems with the g2 pawn. Rook c6, rook takes g2 check, king h1, queen a7, just maintaining this pin on the rook. And rook takes d6. I mean, at this point, it's obviously a very bad position. The house has fallen, and I believe he was also low on time at this point. So knight e5 here, trying to get rid of this knight so I could take the rook, or maybe just take the knight itself. Queen to f1, and I just played the simple rook to g4 here, just defending my knight, still putting pressure on this rook, still putting pressure on this knight, and now I have this rook takes h4 check idea. At this point, Benjamin did go ahead and resign in this position, which, yeah, this is, if you're going to resign, this is definitely the time for it. It was a very interesting game. Again, I don't want to play this opening because Benjamin's a very strong player, and he's definitely going to be able to squeeze me in these bailonies very soon. So let's not give him the opportunity. At least that's how I feel about that. All right, next game up, we have Antonio Soares versus Anibal. And Anibal is going to be playing with the black pieces. This was a very fun game for me to watch. I definitely believe that Soares had or Antonio had an advantage, but Anibal was able to take it from him. So let's take a look at this game. C4, of course. We all know that Antonio is a C4 player. Pawn E6, G3, pawn D5. I don't really know what this is called, this E6 D5 against the English. I guess you could just call the English versus the French, as Anibal also plays the French against C4. D4, knight f6, bishop G2, pawn to C6. So now he has this Moran structure, and then knight to F3, bishop D6, castles, knight F6. It looks like they've transposed into a Catalan, which I don't know too much about. Queen to C2, knight to B to D7, knight to D2, rook E8, knight C3, knight F8, E4. Yeah, I'm definitely liking White's position here. Very nice center. Bishop finqueroed over here. Black is definitely lacking some space in this game. Pawn takes, knight takes, of course. Bishop back to E7. It looks like they are now officially out of theory, of at least known theory for high level players. Move 12, bishop E7. Looks like it was a new move. Rook to D1, defending the D4 pawn, of course. Knight to G6. Knight takes, bishop takes, D5. This is very interesting. I already don't really like the knight takes right away just because we have more space. But I understand Antonio's idea here. He wants to play pawn D5, so he removes the defender of this knight. I wouldn't be in such a rush to open up the center just because I don't have the rook and bishop out. But I definitely understand, again, why he does this. So knight takes, bishop takes, pawn to D5. He punches it. And here it's already starting to say that black is equalizing now. One of the problems in this position for Anibal was getting this bishop out. It does not look like it's going to be a problem anymore. But he does have to play this very precisely here, as obviously you can see. There is definitely some pressure in this position here for white. Pawn takes, bishop G4, developing with a threat right on tempo. Look at that beautiful move. Of course, you can play F3 here, but you don't really want to, kill your own bishop. Ooh, and that's such a nice calculation here by Anibal. So if you play F3, and if you're thinking about pawn takes, so let's just say, like, I don't know, bishop plays back to D7, this pawn takes actually doesn't work out too well as queen B6 check, and then you'll just take back on C6. So this is a very nice calculation by Anibal there, right there. Whoa! Antonio played bishop E3, just giving up the exchange. Kudos to Antonio. Whoa, what a move. So yeah, I mean, if you don't take, your opponent's just winning, right? You got to call the bluffs, or you got to call these things. If you're going to be in a bad position, you might as well have more material. This is very interesting. Although Antonio did give up the exchange for the rook, computer's saying this is about equal here. So I guess Antonio was definitely correct in his assessment of this position. Looks like there are some lines that I can see that I'm calculating that Antonio can win back the exchange. For instance, after pawn takes, Bishop takes. Ooh, I don't like bishop takes. I would have got knight takes. What? Okay, this one I definitely will. I will criticize Antonio for this one. Bishop takes. Knight takes right here. There's already some ideas about like knight to b6 being played, winning the rook back. And you know, knight takes f6 ideas, and just these bishops are looking beautiful over here on the diagonal. Well, anyways, I took with the bishop here, and now it does give it negative 0.1 for black here, going up to -2 now. Queen c7, queen to b3, rook e7 here, bishop g2, bishop takes. Yeah, just some nice trades here. Rook to e8, rook f1, b6, pawn to h4, and here I guess Antonio says enough is enough. And actually, computer likes this also, just giving up the exchange and saying, you know what, I'm going to be up a pawn, plus I'm going to mess up your king side, and I'm just going to create some good counterplay. Whoa, look at this tactic of the day. This is a nice move. Whoa, I like it. The only way for white to keep the balance in this position is this beautiful rook takes f7. Get out of here. That is ridiculous. So after queen takes f7, bishop d5. Whoa, what is going on here? Rook takes g3. Why can't I play king h2? Because queen h... what? Rook h3 check? Oh my god, look at this dirtiness. Computers, I'm so glad I don't have to play them. That is crazy. And then this would be a forced draw here because your rook keeps going back and forth. Only computers can find these kind of things. That and like Magnus, I guess. Or maybe MVO. So yeah, queen takes f7 would have been rook takes f7 would have been a beautiful tactic here by Antonio, but a very hard one to see. Rook takes e3, queen to d5, rook takes g3, -5 advantage. The pawns are very weak here, and obviously the king is very weak too. Pawn h5, knight back to f8, guarding any kind of back rank checks and mates. Rook f3, rook takes, queen takes, and yeah, I mean this king is naked over here. The pawn structure is messed up. Antonio's just up an extra 2 pawns here. This is just a matter of technique for a player like Antonio. So pawn to h6, pawn c4, queen c5 check, king h1, queen takes. Yep, this is just taking all the free pawns, I guess. I'm not sure why bishop f1 got played. I would think you'd want to guard the a2 pawn. Oh, okay, no, I was thinking about some kind of bishop c4 threats, but no, he just takes the pawn. Bishop d3. Oof, this is bad. Yeah, Antonio's just looking to trade queens now, as this endgame is just elementary. There. Queen f6. Yeah, he just is going to play that, and at that point, you know, when you can ruin your pawn structure just to trade queens, it's pretty much game over. I don't know what the time was, but I assume Annabelle is probably up on time as he is a very fast player. At this point, Antonio does throw in the towel here and just say, that's enough for me. All right, next game up is going to be Juan Carrizales versus Mr. Green. Oof, I did see this game, and this was a tough one for Mr. Green. Looks like Juan was able just to create a very nice attack against Mr. Green, and Mr. Green could not hold the line. Let's take a look. Pawn e4, Juan is playing the white pieces here, and Mr. Green's playing the black. e5, knight f3. I have a game where I play f4 against Mr. Green. We call it the beer game. Knight to f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Awesome, we got a Ruy Lopez here. Pawn to a6, Morphy defense. Bishop a4, knight f6, queen e2, bishop c5. I've never liked these bishop c5 ideas. I will always play these bishop e7 ideas these days. Pawn c3, and this is exactly why. If they play these bishop c5 ideas, one of the best ways to play against this is just play c3 d4. Mind you, I don't believe this queen e2 move is going to help out on d4, so I don't like queen e2 here. I would have either castled or played pawn d3 before playing my queen to e2. But I haven't really done much work on this queen e2 line, which does look interesting. Looks like Judith Polgar has a win in here against Pickett. So, you know, Judith is one of the best players ever, so I'll have to take a look at this, and this line is obviously very respectable if Judith is playing it. Pawn b5, bishop to c2, Does anybody know the name of this opening with Queen E2? Uh, D6. It looks like D6, and they're now out of theory as far as lead chess is concerned. They call this the Warmold attack. That does sound familiar. This Queen E2 line, I believe, is called the Warmold attack. Okay, it's a very it's not one of the most popular lines, but something you definitely need to know if you're playing black in this. Bishop B7. These bishops look like they're going to be doing some menacing stuff here, but again, if you play this correctly, these bishops will just get kicked back by the strong center that white is creating. Castles, knight h5. No secrets here, or at least hopefully not for Juan. Knight f4 is a threat. I will criticize Mr. Green. I'll criticize him forever. Castle your king. I have no idea why he loves to just go out for these attacks without castling. So I'll keep criticizing him until he does it, or he will. If he never does it, it's not a big deal because I get to play against him. So knight h5, king h2. Interesting move here by Juan, allowing the knight to f4. Funny enough, Juan had, if you saw the Wednesday games, which we played, the day before, Juan had played like, I forget what Juan had played, but against JP Hilton, JP actually got this knight move in there. So I wonder if Mr. Green had saw that, was going for the exact same tactic. And obviously you can't take back here because the bishop pin here. So maybe that's why that this move that looks a little bit weird got played this time, because he had already fallen for this knight g3 move. So queen e7 gets played. Pawn to b4 here. It looks like Juan's trying to kick back over here. Knight to f4. Queen to d1. Bishop to a7. Pawn d3. So Juan is slowly trying to unravel this position, as Mr. Green obviously got a decent play out of this with a beautiful knight on f4. I mean, come on. Pawn g5, a move I do like. Man, where is this attack coming from? Bishop takes, g takes back, obviously. Ooh, okay, good. Rook's going to come to g8 and now put pressure on g2. Pawn to d4. Of course, when your opponent attacks you on a wing, you want to strike back in the center, and Juan is a very good chess player, or a very principled player, I'd say, at least. And so d4 makes sense, and I do not like castling. Funny enough, I believe the king is actually safer safer in the center right now, just because you can see that there's already this pawn storm on the queen side, and he castles right into it. So this looks like is going to be the decisive strategic mistake that Mr. Green makes. He actually, he sees the fire and he runs into the fire building. If that's me, I'm going to go somewhere else. I mean, I definitely understand it. He must have thought that the attack was not going to come fast enough. And, yeah, Juan's a very good attacking player. A4, of course, why not? Let's open up this queen side. Oh, rook to g8 makes sense again. Funny enough, white's going to keep the center closed here so that they can just attack on the queen side. And now these bishops, which look very menacing, are not going to be able to help the attack out. In fact, I don't even see a good plan here for black to create some counterplay. I mean, at least not right now. The rook takes g2 ideas are the only ones I'm seeing. And unfortunately, because of the piece placement, it's just not working out. Already the advantage here is plus 5, or up a rook, basically. So, pawn takes, knight to b8. What? Wow, and the computer is actually giving knight b8 as the best move. And if you're having to play knight to b8 as your best move and not take back pawns, something went wrong. Because if pawn takes back, d5 gets played, so you lose the bishop. From a completely solid position to a losing position so fast. Knight b8, pawn takes, of course. Bishop takes, interesting. Yeah, this does win a pawn, but I mean, I guess there's just no really good things to do here. In bad positions, there's only bad moves. Bishop d3, king to b7, b5, pawn c5, check, king to c8, queen b3, rook d7, knight d2, finally developing his last piece, and you can see this knight's got some squares to run to. Rook c7, rook b1, rook to d8. I'm not sure where that move was played. Okay, rook d8, queen d5, rook c6, rook b7. Interesting. I remember seeing this during the game, and I was curious why he didn't just play rook takes b8 and then take the rook. Um, I mean, obviously, just still winning position here. But after rook c6, rook b7 just looks as devastating as the other move. Rook c7, I assume double the rooks. Yep. If it's a party and everybody's coming to the party, man. Invite all your friends. The knights, the rooks, the bishops, the queen. She's a party animal. Pawn takes, king c7, knight c4, king d7, rook a1. Oh, yeah. Knight c6, rook a6. Now d6 is falling, or the knight will fall. Oh, this is a little torture right here. Even knight takes e5 ideas in these situations. In fact, couldn't you play like knight takes e5 earlier? Yeah, you could just take here because of the pin. Oh my god. And then knight c6 can get played next. Oh my lord. So rook a6, rook b8, check, king e6, rook takes a7, and then, yeah, this is the only move that Mr. Green could find. King to d5 exclam. Yeah, obviously at this point the game is over. So he just jumps on the board. He's like, there's not enough pieces here to stop me. So this was his resigning move right here, jumping right onto it. Very nice attacking game by Juan, and unfortunately for Mr. Green, he castles the wrong way right into the attack, and Juan does not miss his opportunity to just attack him back. That was the last of the 4 games that we were looking at for the San Antonio Club Championship Round 2. I do have one more game I'm going to review real quick. This is actually from the Wednesday games that we played, and this is actually going to be Yak, my private student, versus Jason Loving. So Yak is playing the white side, and Jason Loving is playing the black side here. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4. Of course, these aggressive players are very happy in their Sicilians. C takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and Jason is no one who is shy. Pawn to a6, going into the Najdorf. Again, to me, this is like playing the Grunfeld and playing King's Indian or these other crazy theoretical games where I'm just like, this is too much theory for me. I think I'm going to play something like, I don't know, a3 or just something lame here just to not go into these crazy variations. Bishop c4. This is the old line with like the Fischer-Sozin kind of stuff here. Pawn e6. Bishop e3. Knight d7. Actually, let me turn this on, see what we're in here. It says this is the Pinsky attack. Castles here. Knight c5. This is all mainline theory. And I believe Fischer in these games was playing, yeah, Fischer was playing f4, f5. And it's not a bad idea at all. The problem is that, since Fischer played it, everybody knows Fischer, so they know his ideas. So basically anything that Fischer played is going to be refuted these days. And most people have it in their minds. So rook e1. This move, rook e1, looks like, yeah, I mean, already at this point, most of these games are favoring black already. Black already has a better win ratio here. So sorry, Yak, you chose the wrong line. Rook e1, queen c7, pawn to f4, looking to play either f5 or e5. Yeah, I definitely prefer this f4 idea. I believe in one of Fischer's games, it's like knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, and then f5, and Fischer was able to win it. Looks like Topalov played this, Nadish. Topalov played this against Short. Oh, very cool, but Short won. Although Topalov did beat Gary Kasparov in this line, too, so. Alright, back to the main game. Rook e1, which I don't like. Pawn f4, b5. Pawn to a3, double question mark here, apparently. Looks like a fairly natural move here. Seems like the only way for white to keep equality is to play e5 right away, which, yeah, I'm surprised Yak does not play this, as it looks like it's the only move that's moving forward here. Not that a3 is a bad move, it's just, well, it's just not trying to grab the advantage, right? So bishop b7, E5 now. Looks like it's one move too late. Knight takes, question mark, interesting. C takes B3. Knight to D7. Here, I definitely like pawn to F5, which looks pretty fun here. I don't know if it works, but I tell you, with the king and the center, I definitely like trying to get rid of pawns. And I definitely see some fun ideas here. In fact, black has to walk the tightrope here, although I'm sure that Loving can do it with D takes D5, F takes E6. Whoa, this is crazy. And then it's giving pawn takes. Ooh. Be careful, don't take the pawn, as queen b6 check will win the knight back right away. So computer is giving queen h5 check here. G6, and I assume like queen h3. Okay, queen g4, putting pressure on e6 here. Man, this would have been a very fun and crazy line here. Unfortunately for Yak, he does not. Oh hey, Coach Jerry. He did. I was like, I thought I heard the restroom. He didn't go into this attack. So e5 got played, knight to d7, and Yak plays pawn takes, which I can criticize my student as much as I want to. I hate this move. Only thing it's doing is helping, him get ready to develop his last piece to attack him and get ready to castle. So criticism, Yak. Criticism. Knight takes b5, another very poor move by Yak. I mean, obviously the idea is to try and do this, but I mean, there's just a check here. So after takes, bishop c5 check, knight back to b5. I'm even surprised that he plays himself back into the pin. King h1 looks like a better move to me. Mind you, it's still a lost position, but these pawns do look a little bit weird here. If you can maybe trade off mostly all the pieces, these pawns can become a threat. Knight d4, castles, bishop e3, knight f6, rook c1, nice. All things considered, it could definitely be a worse position. Queen to e7, of course. Knight f5. I don't like this move. I don't know why you're trying to trade pieces here. b4 I like the most, attacking this bishop. But he plays knight f5. Just too glamorous here with the tactics that are not helping him out. Bishop takes check, rook takes, queen to d8, rook to d3, because Yak does not want to trade. Queens, which I wouldn't want to either. Queen b6 check, knight to d4, putting yourself into a pin again. Rook d8, of course. Yak jumps out the pin. Knight d5, yeah. The activity of black's pieces here is just so good. If these pieces weren't so active, then maybe Yak could stand against this, but with that being said, no, that's not going to be happening right here. Queen g4, looking to go for some kind of kingside attack, because that's what Yak does, and that's why I like him. Knight b4, whoa, now that's a spicy meatball right there. Knight b4 here, huh? Whoa, yeah, Loving is definitely a tactician, a man of my own heart. So, knight takes e6, Yak, whoa! And funny enough, this is actually the top move by the computer. I would not have guessed that, but this is definitely the top move by the computer. So, knight takes e6 here. Oof. I have no idea what these guys are thinking about. These are those games where you're looking at where it's just so tactical. It's like you have to be playing it or think about it for quite a while to understand the logic of this stuff. So, obviously, the checkmate's right here. So, yeah, Loving just plays this nice and simple, just trades queens. And after this pawn takes, I mean, it's almost like it was better just to not win the pawn and not get these triple pawns here. Oof. Yeah, I would have thought maybe playing like a simpler move, like, oh, you can't even play rook g3 because queen takes d4 gets played. So, yeah, this is why this knight takes e6. So there was really no hope here in this position, especially against someone far higher rated than you. And here it looks like Loving does a very good job sweeping this up. This is a very easy endgame to win. Even if the king runs over here to help escort the pawn, the bishop will just sacrifice while Loving's king comes over here, sweeps up the pawns, and then just pushes them forward. Interesting why he doesn't take there. Maybe that was like a slip. Okay, and at this point, Yak just goes ahead and throws in the towel. So this again, this last game was actually a game from our Wednesday games. The pairings are up for round 3 and round 3 for Wednesday, and also the club championship. Thanks for checking out the San Antonio Chess Club championship. I'm gonna probably start another stream, or I guess I could just do it, but yeah. Hope you guys